Tuesday, July 15th, we take care of our own is this fine song by Bruce Springsteen. Lots of folks in this town wondering who's going to take care of them. The headline in today's commercial appeal may introduce Mayor Wharton and explain or just say it all in one sentence. Health benefits, reality, nobody likes it. That about covers it, seems like. And I thank you for coming up here and doing this. You didn't have to. You really have no forum to speak at length about the numerous questions and concerns of the city's people, the firefighters, the police officers. This is a pretty tense time around here. And I think it's unfair to lay all of this at your feet. But you're the mayor, you're the guy in charge, so this falls to you to explain as best you can.
Thanks. Good morning, and I really appreciate the format. So, where do you want to start?
Oh Lord, how's your golf game?
What golf game?
This has all been forewarned, and people have seen this coming for a long time. The questions remain: how we got to this position. We can go back to 2008 and start with that, and the bottom that fell out of everybody's pension plans, retirement plans, and so on.
But that stock market is back up in a big way.
Since that time, the city had a commitment to replace the money in that pension plan, millions of bucks that the employees have been paying into. But where'd the money go? Why isn't the money there? And why all of a sudden are these people left with this devastation, in many cases, in their lives? Older folks that are left holding the bag. These folks who are on the force now, are young firefighters, have no particular incentive to keep working. People are quitting in record numbers. The emails that we see, and that you see likely as well, are some really, really angry people, and seemingly justifiably so.
Understandably. Let me go first. Why do we have to just do this right now? Very simple. There's now a state law that changed everything. It used to be that there was always the let's study it, let's do a little bit, let's do it next year, let's do it 3 years from now, but the state has spoken. So to give a simple answer, somebody wanted just some real relief, maybe get the state to change that law or whatever, but I don't think that's going to happen. But that's what crystallized it right here now. How did we get here over the years? First of all, as I've said before, you got a pension plan that was designed back in 1948, and for the most part has stayed the same. A whole lot has changed since then. People are living longer, families are more dependents, folks remarry, and whatever. Up until 2008, 2009, the investment returns alone was enough to make up the full amount that was going into the plan. That plus the employees' contribution was enough. Matter of fact, it was fully funded in terms of what was supposed to be paid each year. Well, everybody knows what happened in 2008, 2009. That's when the pension plan lost all over $500 million because the returns weren't coming in. Well, the simple answer would have been, well, just go to the general fund and top it up. But there were a number of other things were happening around that time. One, the council had cut the tax rate to give a tax cut because we were no longer funding schools. And then, of course, the court came back and said, yes, you do have to pay schools. The Supreme Court said that, so we had to start paying that. But we did not increase, or we did not restore the full amount that had been cut. So we started paying the schools out of other money. And then, of course, the reappraiser came along and lost $27 million in property tax revenue. So it's not as if the money was there and it went off to some other wrongful purpose or whatever. It's just that the investments failed. The money did not come in to the tune of $500 million right at the time that the council and the city could have been saying, all right, let's make it up this way, let's make it up this way. But we have the money that was due to the schools and then all the other things. So it's not as if the money was taken and given to something else.
Okay, that's going to beg the question from a lot of people. During this time, when there was no money for the pension, and they could not fund that, and there was no tenable way to do that, this city built a baseball park, renovations of a number of things, the additions of things, revivals of old hotels, this thing downtown in Tom Lee Park, 45 million bucks spent on that travesty. And so people want to know, I have several bank accounts. If one of them gets low, I transfer some money from one to the other. It isn't that simple, I understand that.
Right.
But it is a fair question as to where all of this dough that was put into these other projects, why couldn't some of that have been shifted into this to make this easier on these pension plans and insurance premiums and that kind of thing? That is maybe the most asked question that we get.
It is, and also to add to what Drake was saying, every project that has come up, be it Bass Pro, be it the boat landing downtown, all of them start off with a simple contribution from the city, and then they go so over budget that it completely blows that out of the water too. And there's been a lot of money wasted in those areas.
Right.
With the exception of FedEx Forum.
Yeah, that was one that we can be proud of. But there are other ones that are just head shakers.
But it gives the forum gives an example. Can you transfer bank accounts, money from one
Right.
account to the other, as you pointed out? It's not that simple. If you look at all of these projects, even take Bass Pro, how it's funded is what they call TDZ, Tourism Development Zone money. That is sales taxes collected in that area as opposed to going to Nashville to stay there. You cannot use those funds to say, well, I'll put it in a pension plan. It has to stay in that project. So it's not a matter of just reaching over and saying that money could have gone there. No, it could not have gone there. The convention center and the pyramid, the Bass Pro, are funded by what is called a TDZ. Those funds cannot be used for pensions. But the bigger question is, why do you need to do those things at all? That's the basic question, just regardless of how you fund it. The question is, why do we have to do those? Well, let me take just a minute to answer that. Everybody tells us you cannot raise your property tax anymore, okay? Everybody says, don't raise my property taxes. Then folks say, hey, see, we want to have a toll coming in here. Well, that's illegal in state law. Then some say, why don't you make the folks who come in here and work, why don't they have to pay something? Can't do that unless the state legislature allows us to do it. If you cannot raise property taxes for fear of running businesses out of the county, you cannot do a toll bridge. You cannot put an employment fee on folks coming in from other jurisdictions. Where in the world are you going to get the few coins that you do get to keep the city going? And the answer is quite simple. Sales taxes, hotel motel taxes. If we did not have the Forum downtown, if we did not have Bill Street, if we did not have the other attractions, the folks who are coming in here, Grayson and all those things, we're getting ready to expand out there. The one engine that we do have is attracting folks to Memphis who stay in our hotels, spend money, go to the restaurants, put people to work. And let me just say this, I am no lover of the pilot process. If you look at what's announced in the paper this morning, they didn't talk about pilots, but they looked like they had a $165 million grant from somewhere. The bottom line is that if you want to stay in the game, you've got to have some kind of incentive. And right now, those attractions, including the Redbirds, right after the Redbirds deal was announced, if you look across the street where the old bus station once stood, it's gone now. Guess what? They're building a hotel there. What does that mean? More tourists, more dollars, more jobs. It's just that's the only thing that's keeping us in the game right now.
And that in itself seems to be a problem. Mayor Wharton is our guest. The pilot programs have rankled a lot of people, and the question has come up, why does a city like Memphis need to pay people and use these pilot programs to entice them to come to this city to create businesses and jobs? Isn't there some other way to do that without having to give the farm away to get somebody to come here and succeed or not?
Is it competition? Is every other town in America doing the same thing?
Yes. And we are in a particularly acute situation here because Mississippi and Arkansas have different tax structures. And you've heard me say it before on this show. In Mississippi, it is a very simple process in which the state looks at how much this employer coming to town is going to pay in income taxes, in the employee's income tax portion. They then borrow against that, issue the bonds, build the plant, build the road, infrastructure, or whatever. We don't have that here. So since Mississippi has an income tax, it does not have to jack around with its property taxes. Their property taxes are much lower. And the only thing that keeps us in the game is some kind of pilot process. Let me tell you, I'll say over and over again, I would much prefer to have a straight up process in which an employee would come in and say, look, I need $2 million to build a sewer ditch or whatever. Can you give me a loan? I'll pay it back, as opposed to jacking around with the property taxes. That's what other jurisdictions do. Unfortunately, we cannot do that here.
So we can't raise property taxes anymore. That's off the books.
Oh, listen, let me tell you. For every call, every question I get with respect to pension, 10 about don't raise my taxes, don't raise my property taxes.
Well, we had an idea from one of the listeners that has emailed in at mail@drakezeke.com saying, bringing up again, selling off MLG and W. A good idea, but maybe better sell it off to 2 or 3 different owners and have some competition. Maybe put up a contract that gets reevaluated every 10 years. There's a couple of $1 billion right there.
And we've also, in the past 10 days, since all this this whirlwind began, have heard a number of people say that police and fire are the backbone of this and or any city, and its security and its foundation. That they'd be willing to pay more property tax if there were some kind of compromise to be reached.
Listen, therein lies the key. There has to be a way for everybody to get in. I know in some jurisdictions the employees have said, hey, look, we will contribute more than our 8%. We'll go up to 10%. If you simply will pull back on this. That's the kind of talk I want to get involved in. I want to engage in.
I think it's going to have to happen.
It's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
Let me say this. You all know, and everybody knows, that this thing was rolled out a long, long time ago. Ordinarily, people accuse me of waiting to the last minute and throwing something out, or put something out, and then they say, well, you don't stick with it. Well, we put out this proposal, so everybody would know what was being proposed. We stuck with it. But all along the way, I said, look, if you got something better, come to me before the vote. Let's get it in the mix. Absolutely nobody did.
And that's a legitimate thing to say. I have a story here from February from the Commercial Appeal that says Memphis Mayor A.C. Wharton has tried to convince the City Council to greatly boost funding to the government employee pension plan. You attempted, I think, to convince them in February that this was a problem that was about to blow up. Now, the City Council, I guess they are the deciders in this situation, and their vote, it has been observed in somebody emailed that they went in there and made this decision. There was no second reading. Boom, bam, it's done, move along. And they have no intention of, or don't have the ability to go back and look at this again. So today they're offering, I don't know if this is lip service or if it is a potentially functioning idea to have the public come and share ideas. Is there anything to this? Is there any substantive outcome for this, or are they just trying to calm people down?
I don't think it's a matter of calming people down. I really do believe that there may be some suggestions out there. The idea of the sales tax increase. Some oppose it. Some say it's a good idea.
0.5%, right?
Yeah, that will get a fair hearing. That idea did not bubble up until the council said, "Hey, give us some ideas," and then boom, here it comes. Whether you like it or not, that's not the issue here. It did come in from the public. I think you will hear the public come in, and they might say, "Well, could y'all maybe phase in these retiree health care changes? Can you phase?" That's the kind of thing. I really don't believe anybody's going to come in with any earthquake of an idea that just turns the world upside down. But the key thing is to get folks involved in the process.
Yeah.
A good byproduct is they will see how amazingly difficult it is, and that there are no simple answers. And what I hope that will do is drive us all back to the table, sit down and see if we can find some common ground somewhere.
Well, that is the answer in a nutshell right there, is to find some common ground somewhere. But it seems like that this it becomes a legal question. Can the council undo a decision like this? And if they were to undo it, via the court system, or whatever the answer might be, couldn't anything else they voted for be undone as well if it pisses somebody off?
Well, there are certain time limits, but we amend the budget mid-year every year. That's what we call a mid-year cleanup. The budget could theoretically be amended. I'll have to get the lawyers to rule on that. But there are ways to tweak the plans that are on the table, and we are open to that. The only thing that we really can't negotiate on is we can't go back and say we're not going to do anything about funding this state-required mandate of putting in at least $78 million a year into fund. Now, the key word I use is that let's stay on this trajectory. There's a lot of room as long as we're heading toward what the state told us to do. And if you look at that law, I went up and got them to amend the law that said even if you happen to slip on your way to that 5-year mark, if you show that you're making progress toward that mark, the comptroller and the folks up there have the leeway to work with you. So we have some leeway as long as we show that we're going toward the goal. It's not like, uh-oh, you stepped up 1 year, boom, the hatchet comes down. But this is the first step. So as long as we don't retreat on this first step and go back and say, we're not doing anything, to hell with the state. Hey, there's plenty of room for us to sit down and talk about this plan. Now, the question though is, well, why did you end up taking it out of OPEB, the retiree benefit portion? When this budget process started, everybody looked at police and fire, and this is really ironic. Everybody looked at police and fire, and they said, man, you can get $14 or $15 million out of fire, and that'll be just about half the money we need to patch up this pension deal. We went to Director Armstrong and Director Benson. I asked Director Armstrong, I said, I want you to take a sheet of paper, and in $1 million increments, I want you to just take off $1 million here, $1 million here, $1 million there. And he did precisely that. Honestly, he was troubled by that.
He took out $26 million, right?
It didn't get to $26 million. Let me get back to
okay.
it. He started down the process, and I said, Director, I know you don't want to do this. I said, but what gets us in trouble every year is when the council starts asking a question about MPD. They'll say, have you tried this? Did you try that? And we said, no, we didn't look at that. I said, you have to make a good faith effort to see what you can whittle down. And when he got down to the first 9 items, he'd gotten into the meat. He was cutting out OCU, and I said, ho. This dog ain't gonna hunt. It's one thing to say, we won't have anybody over the impound lot. Hey, we can do without that, okay? But when it got into the meat of what the police department does, that's when I said, this is a no-go. This is when we called Dr. Janikowski back in, who knows perhaps more about MPD than anybody. And I said, give me an outside view. He came back and said, Mayor, you can't do that. So I went back to the council. Instead of saying let's cut, I said let's put $5 million in for a new police class. So I make that point for those who say, God, that guy's picking on the police department. It's just the opposite. We added money. Same thing, Director Benson. I said, Director, tell me the truth. Would these cuts hurt? He said, Mayor, that's dangerous. I said, heck with it, we're not doing it. And the council, to its credit, if you notice one thing, this is 1 year in which there was no debate on let's take something out of police and fire. To the contrary, this is the year in which they put $6 million back into the police department, over and above what they had, to bring in classes, 1 class in fire, 1 class in police. So once that option of getting it out of police and fire was ruled out, where are you going to go? Raise taxes? Didn't have 7 votes for that. Cut services? Where are you going to cut? We just went back last year, to the council's credit. Folks said you're cutting library hours, $700,000 more in the library. It's supposed to be more. You're not doing potholes. Boom, $4 million there. Community centers, kids don't have anything to do. Boom, here's some money. Keep them open. And now you're going to come back, pull all of that stuff out. Where was the money? The only place where there was an option was in those benefits. Why? Because now there's some alternatives. There's Medicare, which will be paid for by the city, and there's Medigap, which will be paid for by the city, Medicare Advantage, which will be paid for. There's the Affordable Care Act, In many instances, what the employees pay on the exchange will be less than what they're paying to the city. So that was the only area in which there were some alternatives. And so that's why we ended up there. I know that's a long answer, but I want to get
Well,
back
no,
to
it is the answer that people want to hear. Mayor Wharton is our guest. Are you on any kind of a time frame here?
We'll work with you on that.
All right.
They'll say,
I'm going to do a little break here and
Go.
come back, and we're going to check. We have a lot of email questions
Great.
about various things, and we'll come back. Yeah, this thing that came out of your office, city, local health care providers, insurers have a new plan to assure coverage options for all retirees. So I don't know if the police and fire are hearing what you're saying, if these guys are out there now going, oh, this is a bunch of BS, if it's being taken too personally, if it is the insult to their integrity and their commitment to this city. I don't know. But the options that are being suggested may be the only route there is. We will do a little break here and come right back with Mayor A.C. Wharton. Hang on.